So, I want you to just picture the night sky for a second. You're looking up at the moon. Now, if you are raised on Greco-Roman stories like a lot of us, you probably picture the moon as this pristine, glowing, untouchable goddess, right? It's all about that pure, ethereal female energy. But what if I told you that for a massive part of the world, the moon wasn't a pristine goddess at all? Actually, scratch that. What if the moon was a flawed, scarred, and occasionally unfaithful old man? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely shatter your preconceived notions about the celestial bodies overhead. We're diving into a wild paradigm shift to uncover the ancient Slavic moon god. And trust me, you're going to see just how incredibly different and surprisingly human the moon can really be.
All right, to really wrap our heads around just how different this moon god is, we've got to look at this massive cultural contrast. See, if you grew up with Western mythology, you're definitely used to a male sun god, think Apollo, and a female moon goddess like Diana or Selene. But the Slavic and Baltic traditions, they completely flipped the script. They viewed the moon as decidedly male and the sun as female. And this isn't just some quirky little regional difference, you know? It literally changes the entire personality of the night sky, creating a completely different dynamic between these celestial bodies.
And what's crazy is that this whole linguistic gender swap actually goes all the way back to the reconstructed Proto-Indo-European root deity. That's the ancient ancestor to most European languages, and the root is pronounced Maynet. When we track the linguistics across different ancient cultures, we see that while the Greeks went one direction, so many others inherited this male lunar concept. I mean, the Norse gave us the male moon god Mani, the Latvians worshipped Menes, and the Slavs, they gave us Mesiats. So this is a deeply rooted ancient concept of the moon as a distinctly masculine force that spans across a huge chunk of European history.
So meet Mesiats, or Mesiats, depending on exactly what region you're looking at. He is the anthropomorphized male moon deity of the Slavic pantheon. And let me tell you, he is a far cry from those pristine, untouchable celestial beings you might be used to seeing in white marble temples. No, this is a god who feels incredibly down to earth. He's deeply woven into the messy, everyday realities of the people who worshipped him. He wasn't some distant, aloof figure. He was right there in the sky, reflecting the very real lives, the flaws, and even the humor of the agricultural societies living right below him. Now, what is truly fascinating about his character is just how earthy, humorous, and deeply human he is. Get this, he was actually sometimes affectionately, or maybe even a little mockingly described as the sun's old bald uncle. Depending on the specific Slavic folklore you're reading, he's also seen as the sun's aging husband. The story goes that as winter sets in, he moves away from her and literally grows older, but then his youth bounces back in the summer when they're finally reunited. People widely revered him as this great dispenser of abundance and health. But he definitely wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. He was also known as a scarred, unfaithful seducer, which brings us to one of the most incredible myths. In this story, his changing lunar phases are actually seen as literal scars from a lightning strike after he cheated on his solar wife. So the story goes that Mesiats seduced Danica, the morning star, while the great Slavic thunder god, Purin, was absolutely furious at this betrayal. So as a punishment, Purin struck the moon's face with a fierce lightning bolt, leaving him permanently scarred. And those scars, according to the myth, are the real reason the moon waxes and wanes. He is constantly showing his shame and his battered face to the whole world. This actually brings up a really fascinating question that early rural populations were trying to figure out. Think about it. How did everyday Slavic peasants explain those dark spots on the moon's surface? When they looked up at the full moon, they obviously didn't know about asteroid impact craters or ancient lava plains. What they saw were distinct shapes, shadows, and smudges. And the answers they came up with to explain these visual anomalies, they provide an amazing and honestly often hilarious window straight into their daily lives. So what exactly were they seeing up there? Well, according to old folklore journals, some folks believed those spots were actually two blacksmiths hammering out the stars. In Russian traditions, it's two smiths literally forging the night sky. In Serbian tales, it's a smith working hard on his anvil. Sometimes he pauses his hammering, which supposedly makes the moon shine just slightly more opaquely than the sun. It's such a cool concept, right? It turns the moon from this silent rock floating in space into an active, noisy, cosmic workshop right above their heads. And this is where we really see how different this moon god is from those untouchable deities of the West. Because in these stories, he was literally stained by cow dung, bread dough, or dirt. Yeah, you heard that right. Some Bulgarian and Macedonian traditions claimed the spots were traces of a thrown cow pat.
Other regions said a woman simply wiped her hands on the low-lying moon after kneading bread, leaving sticky dough behind. Or maybe a mother wiped dirt from washing diapers onto it. The moon wasn't sitting in some untouched sacred heaven. It was right there, getting dirty with the rest of the village.
But it wasn't just household chores leaving a mark. Other regions saw these mini mysteries playing out right in those craters. Like they pictured a peasant thief trying to desperately hide his tracks after stealing peas or manure on a Sunday. In Polish and Czech folklore, the spots show a thief who stole firewood or maybe a basket of eggs. Sometimes it's a peasant spreading manure on a holy feast day, which was a strict no-no. The idea was that the moon caught them in the act, permanently freezing their misdeeds right into the night sky for everyone below to judge.
Now, my personal favorite has to be this brilliantly funny tale of a girl throwing a literal cowpat at the moon so it wouldn't shine brightly enough to reveal her stealing or maybe meeting her lover in the dark. The moon was simply doing its job, shining entirely too brightly, and it was totally going to ruin her secret rendezvous. So what does she do to solve the problem? She just grabs the nearest piece of cow dung and hurls it straight at the moon's face to dim its light. And of course, that leaves a permanent, rather embarrassing smudge.
And hey, speaking of lovers, Bulgarians and Russians often interpreted those lunar spots as a boy and a girl, carrying water buckets on a romantic rendezvous. In these tales, you have a girl carrying buckets on a shoulder pole, going out to fetch water, and she meets a boy who is often a poor shepherd. And in some versions of the myth, the moonbeams themselves act almost like a sci-fi tractor beam. They descend from the sky and suck the star-crossed lovers right up, preserving their secret affection forever up there in the lunar shadows.
Over time, though, biblical figures and historical characters started to replace those pagan myths. They crowded the moon's surface with this odd, eclectic mix of saints and sinners. As Christianity spread, the old pagan myths began to blend with a new religion in a process called double faith. And man, it got pretty crowded up there. You had Cain holding Abel on a pitchfork, you had Adam and Eve boiling milk on a cauldron, you even had St. George up there playing the lute. And in Polish tradition, you could find the legendary sorcerer Twardowski just smoking a pipe or making butter right alongside a devil.
But what's really important here is that most of these figures were placed on the moon to serve as a giant, glowing warning to humanity, whether that was for murder, theft, or just simply working during a feast day. This perfectly highlights how fundamentally different this moon god truly was. Unlike some distant ethereal goddess, this moon functioned as a universal cosmic billboard. It was a highly visible, active participant in everyday moral enforcement. Deities put these wrongdoers up there so that everyone on Earth could look into the night sky and remember to stay in line. But, the moon's ancient pagan power was really hard to erase. In fact, even the Bogenki, these wild Slavic forest nymphs, were said to hold the moon as their absolute ruler. Now, these nymphs were pretty similar to the Greek goddess Artemis's helpers, but with one massive difference. Instead of answering to a maiden goddess, they were driven entirely by the power and the cycles of a male moon god. They were super active on summer moonlit nights, protecting wild animals and shooting bows, which just goes to show how deeply this masculine reverence was embedded in the natural world.
And this deep, localized reverence actually survived centuries of Christianization. It's beautifully captured in this striking 19th century account, where peasants in the Ukrainian Carpathians openly affirmed that the moon is their god. They were still actively worshiping it. This survival really matters because it proves that this deeply human, fundamentally different kind of moon god wasn't just some fleeting myth. It was a lasting spiritual reality. Long after the official temples to the great Slavic deities had fallen, these rural people didn't need a complex theology. They literally just needed to look up to see the ancient glowing face of their god looking right back at them.
So the next time you step outside and gaze up at the night sky, I want to leave you with this to ponder. What is actually looking back at you? We get so used to the stories we grew up with, right? But the sky belongs to everyone, and every culture has painted its own brilliant masterpiece across those stars. Will you see a pristine classical goddess, a hiding thief freezing in the night, two blacksmiths hammering out the stars? Or will you see the sun's scarred old bald uncle? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking up and I'll catch you next time.